Okay.
In honor of your retirement, we wanted to play your first ever video on SUNUP and get your reaction watching it from 9 years ago.
Okay.
So here goes.
Yeah. I love that music. Oklahoma State has a wonderful reputation, certainly in Oklahoma, but I think people don't realize how solid that reputation is across the country.
So what goes through your mind when you watch that?
I've aged. 9 years takes a toll.
Me too.
Yeah, but you know, it's fun to see that, fun to reflect back and really remember what it felt like to be embraced, you know, to be welcomed here. And in that first year, my wife and I both just constantly commented on how much people treated us with respect. They welcomed us. It was this is a very hospitable place, a very hospitable culture, and we got a full dose of that.
Oklahoma is very welcoming for sure and friendly, which had to make your job easier once you really hit the ground running with all the things that you had to do in the position.
You know, it was sort of the proverbial fire hose, you know, in some respects, trying to learn as much as I could, meet as many people, go to as many places and experience things. And, you know, part of my motivation for my career is I consider myself a professional student. And this is my gig that allows me to go out and learn about things that I haven't been familiar with before. I learned about agriculture in Iowa, growing up in Iowa, but I've learned a lot about wheat. I've learned a lot about beef cattle. I've learned a lot about sesame, and you know, so much of that I've really enjoyed that. But you know, so that first year, there was a lot of that, just sort of feeling like I need to absorb as much as I can so I can be as effective as possible. In retrospect, looking back at it, the thing that is almost overwhelming is the extent to which people shared their trust. And you know, I mean, for me personally, but for this institution, you know, what I experienced as hospitality and welcoming, I think partly was people in this state trust their land-grant institution. They trust their agriculture, natural resources college, and so therefore they trust the dean. Whether they have any reason to trust him or her or not, it's implicit, and you know, that has borne fruit throughout my 9 years here. That willingness of people to trust me, to trust our extension staff, to trust our faculty, to trust our students. You know, it really is a really special opportunity to be able to experience that and to be able to work with that. You know, it's a form of capital. You know, trust is a form of capital. And when people share that capital with you, you can do a lot and accomplish a lot. And you know, we've got extension staff around the state that live that every day.
When you reflect back, what are some of the high points that really stand out for you over the 9 years?
It's definitely the people, and hearing people's stories and then being trusted to tell their stories. You know, some of it goes back in history to the history of this university and our college. I've talked before about Minnie Lou Ottinger, now Minnie Lou Bradley, the first woman to graduate in animal husbandry from Oklahoma A&M back in the early 50s, the first woman to be the top individual at the International Livestock Expo Collegiate Judging Contest back in 1951. She was the first of 9 Oklahoma State women to have that honor. No other universities had that many. To meet her and to be able to tell her story as she tells it. When she tells her story, she doesn't tell a story about her accomplishments. She tells a story about the extension educators, the faculty members, the judging team coaches, the other students who helped her be successful. I think about a fellow named Conrad Evans, who felt called really to go to Ethiopia when former President Bennett issued the call to help establish an agricultural university in Ethiopia. And he raised his hand and said, I want to go be part of that, and spent 9 years there and built buildings that still stand at that institution. So, you know, those are tremendous stories, really powerful stories that changed the world. And so that's an honor. But then to meet, you know, Brittany Crable, now Brittany Huckel, and learn her story and to see her flourish because she felt called to go run her family farm that her grandfather and her father had run, and now she runs with her husband. You know, there's just so many stories of people like that that have been really the highlight of this time. The Ferguson family, you know, what a legacy that they've created. And to me, the most powerful thing about them was when I heard Larry Ferguson say out there at the Ferguson Family Dairy Center, explaining why they made the investment in improving that facility. And he said, we feel called, our family feels called to feed the world. And I thought, wow, that's it. That's why we're here. And so, you know, to have one of our alums state that mission so clearly and succinctly and powerfully, you know, that's definitely a highlight of the time here. Their philanthropy, of course, has been a highlight as well. But I think that the biggest gift they gave us was that voice for why we're here and what we're about. And so when that new building is done across the street, there's going to, as you walk in, it's going to say that, call to feed the world. Because it's the simplest way of stating why this college exists.
It really centers all of us, right?
It does.
The hundreds of faculty and staff, the thousands of students who come through here, will come through here, alumni, it really brings us all together, doesn't it?
It does.
That simple phrase.
It does. It does. It reflects a sense of stewardship, a calling, a mission, a responsibility to serve each other and to serve, you know, the natural world that supports us. So, you know, there are just so many people like that that have made this place what it is, and then to have the opportunity to spend time with them, learn their stories, repeat their stories, tell other people about them. That's been a really powerful experience.
And of course, we have producers, our viewers, industry folks who also adopt that mantra day in and day out in their dedication to the industry.
You know, they really do. And of course, growing up in Iowa, I saw that. I worked on farms and I saw what a struggle it is. You know, we've had 2 major droughts in the time I was here. Now, fortunately, one broke just as I arrived, or the year after I arrived. The other one, hopefully, has finished now. And then we've had floods, we've had fires, we've had market collapses, we've had, you know, soaring markets, wars going on, and so on. So resilience is definitely a hallmark of Oklahomans, being resilient. You think about, you know, the Cherokee and Choctaw and Muskogee and Seminole people who were displaced, the Chickasaw were displaced and recreated their culture, their livelihoods here. The Osage, 39 federally recognized tribes, others that haven't been federally recognized, that make up a part of this state, then the culture that it is. That resilience is remarkable. Every state has examples of that, but you know, it's unique here in Oklahoma, and again, it's just a tremendous opportunity, tremendous honor to be able to be a part of that. And kind of as an interloper, as an outsider, to be able to come in and witness that, experience that, and live that with them.
These relationships, the trust, the resilience, the mission that the Fergusons identified all contributed to the New Frontiers effort. Yeah. Give us a little bit of background. I know it's quite a story to get to where we are now in the construction phase and planning the completion and the move-in, but what has that been like for you? And when you look back on your career, where does that whole time period and the New Frontiers effort fit?
Well, you talk about learning, and you know, being a student, I've learned a lot through that process. But you know, and I'll say, when I arrived here, it was not my expectation that we were going to build a new building for this college. Other people may have had that expectation, but it wasn't voiced clearly to me, or if it was, you know, it went right over my head. But it didn't take very long, and you know, initially I saw, gee, there's some shortcomings in our facilities here. We need to address that. So, you know, we were very systematic about it. We did actually 2 different surveys of our facilities, you know, by outside experts. Tell us about the status of these and so on. Oh my goodness, when we get that report, it's like, there's a lot that needs to be replaced here, not just fixed, but replaced. So we had that. We had many opportunities to practice, you know, starting with, actually before I got here, you know, we had the 2013 tornado that took out the field station at Tipton. And so that was being replaced as I arrived, and then shortly thereafter, we got started on the Charles and Linda Klein Equine Teaching Center.
You want to say that part again?
Yeah. Shortly after I got started here, then we had the Charles and Linda Klein Equine Teaching Center that was underway. Bless her heart, Linda financed that whole thing. And shortly thereafter, then the Ferguson Family Dairy Center, the Foundation Seed Stocks building, the Animal Nutrition Physiology building that we replaced, the Greenhouse Learning Center here on campus. Those were all valuable projects because we learned how it works in the university setting, how you know, the stewardship that's required, the fees that we have to pay, and you know, all those kinds of things. But those were valuable experiences. And then, you know, partway through that, then it was like, okay, we've got to tackle the big one here. And so, you know, two key partners in that process are Dr. Randy Raper, who's now our Assistant Vice President for Facilities for OSU Agriculture, and Assistant Director of the Experiment Station, and then Heidi Williams, who was our team lead at the OSU Foundation. And those two really were primarily involved in helping to frame this. Dr. Raper with the facilities part, he's an engineer, so you know, he was able to translate a lot of things for me. And Heidi for her incredible capacity to build relationships that result in philanthropy. And so, you know, I was able to work with 2 really good professionals on this. And we just kind of talked through, well, what do we think we need? How do we go about it? How much is it going to cost? And we had great support from Vice President Joe Weaver, from President Burns Hargis, in kind of the incremental steps through the way. We had an outside group come in and give us an assessment of what our fundraising capacity was, and they said, you probably need to step back. You know, your bite's a little bigger than you can swallow. So break it up, do a smaller project first, raise money for that, then a second one. And when we shared that story with Larry Ferguson and Kayleen Ferguson, it took a while. A couple days later, I get a call from Larry saying, this is too important. This has got to get done. And I want the president to understand how important it is that this gets done. So here's what we're willing to do. And so that began a series of more serious conversations and so on. Meanwhile, we started having conversations with other prospective donors. And so by January 15th, 2020, we had that event over in the Nancy Randolph Davis building to announce the Ferguson family gift, to name the college and to fund half of our fundraising goal for the building project. And at that time, we also had about $4 or $5 more million committed to the project. And our goal was to raise $50 million. So, you know, that from there on, we were geared up to go out and raise money for this building. And then March 2020 happened, and this virus showed up, and everything closed out and so on. 2 years later, we celebrated reaching that $50 million goal. That's that trust thing I was talking about. That's people trusting us to steward their gifts towards this greater goal. a facility that will capture that mission that articulated so eloquently by Larry Ferguson. And then the rest is history. You know, we've got architects, we've got construction managers, we've got bricks, we've got concrete. A lot of concrete was poured across the street here in the last 2 years. And a year from now, we'll have a new building and we'll be occupying it. And so, you know, that's pretty special, but that's a lot of people coming together, investing their trust as much as anything in this institution to be able to present itself and attract students and attract faculty for the future that we're going to confront. And realizing that calling, that mission of being here to help feed the world.
I've heard that you keep a close eye on the construction cameras. What's it been like to watch the building go up?
It was really frustrating at first because Dr. Raper had these cameras put up, you know, 2 cameras looking at the site way early, and nothing was happening. It was like, help me out here. What are we waiting for, and so on. But anyway, since then, of course, there's been a lot of progress, and so it's kind of fun. Each day I look at it maybe 4 or 5 times a day and kind of, can I see anything that's changed? You know, is there anything different? And the beauty of it is, I thought by now probably we wouldn't be able to see any more change because the outside would be done and they'd be doing all the work inside. But actually, they haven't really laid very many bricks yet. There's still windows that need to be installed. And so it'll be fun. You know, as I move away from Oklahoma, I'm still going to be able to follow it and kind of feed that little obsession that I have to keep track of it. Anyway, it's been, I don't know, you know, sort of that mental exercise of rewarding yourself by seeing whatever increment of progress you can.
Well, the time-lapse videos really
Oh, yeah.
help move it along. Those are fun to watch.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so Mandy Gross has been a tremendous colleague in kind of helping us capture this story and tell this story. And my only regret is that I didn't think of doing that a lot earlier. But anyway, she's really helped us to curate that story in a way that will be lasting. And now we have students involved in telling the story, and she'll be working with them over the next year as we prepare for the move-in.
It really is a tremendous moment in the history of the university. Obviously, we have very personal connections to what's going on, but to have that documented for generations to come back and look at what it took to build it. Kind of like when you go to the Arch in St. Louis and you watch that video of how that was built and how tremendous it was. Now we're going to have that for New Frontiers.
Yeah. You know, I remember earlier in my career, as an extension director, you get a lot of comments and advice, not all of which is welcome.
And as a parent.
And as a parent, yeah. So, you know, I'll never forget though, because, you know, when you're trying to make things better, you know, you ruffle feathers, you make people uncomfortable. And sometimes those people who feel uncomfortable go to their allies and say, hey, do you know what this guy's trying to make us do? Can you help us with this? And I'll never forget that happened to me in my former job at Michigan State. And I finally said to the person who was the messenger for the faculty members, I said, you know, what I need from you is for you to expect more of me and them. I don't want you to be satisfied with what we're doing. I want you to expect more of us because that's how you get through life. And that's what we need from you. You know, that's one of those, it's an element of trust, you know, that people who trust you and whom you trust are willing to tell you the hard truth that you might not want to hear. And if they don't share that, that level of trust with you, then your organization isn't going to be as good as it could be. And so, you know, we're going to go through that. Dr. Lusk is going to experience that some as we prepare for the move-in. There are some things about it that are going to make people uncomfortable. It's not that I want people to be uncomfortable, but sometimes being uncomfortable is a part of getting better.
You and I have worked together closely for the last 9 years. You're my boss. I did think that you might stay until the new building opened. Why are you retiring now?
I'm retiring now because I'm ready. And that, I don't mean that in a selfish way, although I do want to fish more. And I want to spend more time with grandchildren. But I've been in enough different leadership roles that I've learned that you reach a point where maybe you don't have quite the energy that it takes to be the leader, but also maybe you don't have quite the trust that you used to have. You become kind of your noise in the background rather than a leading voice. I don't know that I've gotten to that point, but I think I'm close. And I would rather go out early than late. I'd rather be one where they say, why did he leave then, rather than why didn't he leave a year ago? And so, it's not a personal, self-valuing thing. It really is a matter of trying to understand how leadership works, and my personality as a leader, how that works. And so that's a lot of it. But also, for me, to be able to decide when you're done, that's a gift. To be able to say, this is it. Someone else isn't telling you, it's time for you to go. It's me saying, it's time for me to go. And that, what a privilege that has been for me. To be, first of all, to be blessed with, this is my second retirement, so, my wife and I are very fortunate to be able to live comfortably in retirement. That's a gift. And then to be able to say, and now I'm done with this, that's a gift, and I'm taking it.
You've had a long career in land grants.
I have. Yeah.
How many years?
Well, if you go back to when I started grad school, that was in 1976. So nearly 50. 50 years nearly 50 years in land grants. So University of California, University of Missouri, Michigan State University, Oklahoma State University, and throughout that time spending more time at other land grants, just with colleagues, learning from, working with, and we borrow from each other a lot, ideas of how to do things or curricula to use and that kind of thing. And so, I don't think Senator Morrill or President Lincoln had any idea what they were starting when they signed that Morrill Act of 1862, which was on July 4th, by the way. So we just passed another anniversary of it. But it's a uniquely American thing, and it evolved. It started out as just an academic institution. Then they added research because they thought that's what could really drive economic development in agriculture. And then they added this idea of let's make that research available to people who can use it through the extension system. So, it took more than 60 years just to get to that point. And so you've got 108 different versions of that around the country now, between the land grants like Oklahoma State that were established under the 1862 Act, the land grants like Langston that were established under the 1890 Land Grant Act for African American populations, and then the 1994 edition of tribal colleges. There are that many different versions of land grant. And we learn from each other, but each one is unique because it serves a unique culture and economy, unique natural setting for the way people live in that area. And gosh, what a beautiful American experiment, and how powerful it still is, to the point that we have a university president who says this is what we're all about.
Sure. We need to reflect on a retirement party. There were hundreds of people there.
Yeah.
And what was that like to say goodbye to all those folks?
Well, it was heartwarming, of course, mostly fun. I thought afterwards, I hope my funeral's like that, where people are laughing and not mourning, because that was, your team put that video together. That was a lot of fun to watch. I laughed really hard at that. but then also to be embraced by so many people that I've gotten to know and learn their stories and tell their stories to others. It was really fulfilling. And of course, a lot of people who weren't able to go have reached out and said, congratulations, I wish I was there, and so on. But, personally, it's really fulfilling. But also, those are the experiences that reinforce the unique culture that Oklahoma State University is. And particularly, this Division of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, the Ferguson College of Agriculture, the OSU Extension, OSU Ag Research. It's a lot of special people. I'm going to miss them.
They're going to miss you too. What is next for you and Rhonda and the family?
Well, so we will move back to Michigan, where one of our sons and his family live. Our other son and his family live in Alabama. And so we'll try to get to them as often as we can, but we'll be just around the corner from the group in Michigan. I hope they don't regret that. But so anyway, it'll be fun to get back up there and be around our family. And for me to have time to spend on the water. I mean, I do like to fish, but I also like just getting in a kayak and discovering, bald eagles or trumpeter swans swimming around at our lake house and those kinds of things. So for me, the luxury of getting up before dawn, getting out in a kayak, tootling around in that and waiting to see who wakes up first and where do they come from. That, I grew up in Iowa wishing I lived near water, and I could make a day's play out of getting in a ditch that had water in it. I hope I can spend a little more time around water that's a little bit more than an Iowa farm ditch. So those are all things that I look forward to doing.
Sounds really great. And as we talked about at your retirement party, you'll always have a home in Stillwater. Yeah. Rhonda too, always be welcome back. We're glad you saved the best land grant for last. Yeah. And we'll definitely miss you, appreciate your leadership, and appreciate being able to work so closely with you these past 9 years. So wish you the best.
Well, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor. It's been fun to work with you, to learn from you and your crew. To see, every Saturday looking forward to seeing what do they have this week on SUNUP and Oklahoma Gardening. Fortunately, I can stay connected with all that, and I will. I look forward to that. Thank you.